Welcome back, folks, to the Celtic Soul Podcast. For more information on what we do across all our platforms, visit CelticFanzine.com. And it all started 25 years ago when more than 90 minutes Celtic Fanzine first went on sale outside Celtic Park when Martin O'Neill was manager and is still manager of Celtic. But there's been lots in between, and sometimes we get to address them here on the podcast. Sometimes we go back in history, and other times we concentrate on the present. Joining me for a weekly chat on all things Celtic is Glasgow-based journalist, Glasgow resident, and Celtic fan, home and away, Michael Pringle. Michael, you're very welcome back to the Celtic Soul Podcast. As I said, for a weekly chat. It's
good morning, Andrew.
It's good morning to you. It's international break, and It gives us a little rest from travelling, and we have no midweek games. Last week, Michael, I said to you that I thought that the rest would do the players good.
Yeah, it
would give the coaches, Sean Maloney and his staff, time to work with them, especially the new players. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to have the opposite effect at Tannadice in Dundee when United beat us 2-0.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what a midweek break does for us, God help us this week. We're a full fortnight out from it. So, it didn't quite go to plan. And, do you know, it was sort of coming, but we were getting away with it for weeks, I think. And it just completely unfurled on Sunday there. I'd actually met somebody in the supermarket, a boy off my supporters bus who stands in the standing section, and I met him on Saturday night, and we were talking about the fan bans and stuff like that still ongoing, and I said to him, I think they're just kicking. I says the board are just kicking the can down the road in the hope that we keep winning and it'll all be forgotten about. I says, but that could go belly up really quickly. I says it could even go belly up at Tannadice tomorrow or Dens Park next week. So. And so it came to pass basically on Sunday. I mean, it was an insipid performance. We had a lot of the ball, as we most often do, but we didn't really turn that into chances. First half, the chance for Kieran Tierney where he's rifled it over the bar was probably the only chance I know for all our possession. Thought it might get better in the second half, but it actually went the other way, as so often has happened this season. We sort of perform for no more than 45 minutes and sometimes even less than that. So I really don't know where to make it, but there's absolutely no room for error now, but it's going to be a difficult task. And I see that some of the supporters have even lost faith in, not so much in Martin O'Neill, but in the capabilities of Martin O'Neill with getting this squad, bringing success with this squad. It might be that, I mean, I'm not writing the league off just yet when it's mathematically possible still to win it, but it's everything has got to go in our favour now. We've got to win every game and hope that Hearts and B Rangers lose, other than the games that they play us, or draw. So it's going to be a tough ask for us because I really don't see us winning that many games on the trot, no? And it might be that hopefully we've learned for the League Cup final earlier on we could see off St Mirren, but even at that, I mean, it's no given. And even if we are to do that, the final wouldn't be a given either, depending on who we come up against. It was an awful weekend for us. I watched the Hearts game the day before against Dundee, and there was really nothing in it, and I just thought Hearts looked really ordinary. But they got the goal and got the 3 points, and at this stage of the season, that's all that really matters. Rangers had a fairly comprehensive victory. I watched some of that as well. I watched that to 3-1. So I never seen the end of it, but it ended up a comprehensive victory. And I just thought we've got to do the exact same. And it was just I think insipid's probably the best word I could use for it. It just wasn't anywhere near enough. You can have all the effort in the world, but if you've no guile with it, then what does it matter? No, effort will only get you so far. You need quality, and you need to create chances, which is something we're failing to do. We've failed to do all season. It's no surprise that our strikers are struggling for goals because we don't create much for them. But team selection as well, maybe an issue. I thought it was a bit strange that Iheanacho appeared for nowhere to lead the line, and some of the switches, the substitutional changes left a bit to be desired as well, with midfielders ending up at right back and right wingers ending up at right back when we had a right back on the bench, So I don't know what you thought of it yourself, Andrew, but I thought it was really poor.
Well, my thoughts after the game were certainly different before the game. I'm always optimistic, Michael. I picked up a ticket on Friday, got a flight booked, hotel booked. I had to stay over on Sunday night because the flights were just too expensive home on Sunday. So Sunday. I ended up. So I met you in Glasgow briefly on Monday. I thought. Okay, I went with, with high hopes. I bumped into a couple of the lads in the airport, and again it was, we got to win this game. It's a must win. I didn't think the players were up for the game. I thought, which I found strange, because Martin O'Neill has normally got the best bunch out of an average Celtic team at best. I find. Don't forget Martin O'Neill, when he was leaving the first time, before we had those 33 days of disaster with Nancy, which Tannadice played a big part in that as well. The atmosphere wasn't much different after the game, wasn't it? Toxic, but there was still, a lot of people angry at the board and even at the team because of the performance. Dundee United are no great shakes.
No.
Like, Martin called when he was leaving that time that the manager who was coming in needed to strengthen the squad and needed first team players ready. These are words that were echoed from Brendan Rodgers from the start of the season. Rodgers wasn't backed. Martin O'Neill wasn't backed in this transfer window. What we saw coming in is a bunch of loanees, mixed bunch. One good, one not so bad, and others just, you think they won a raffle to play for Celtic in a charity game, and that's been kind to them. So, Iheanacho coming back was a surprise, but this was a player that was clubless before he came to Celtic. Brendan Rodgers probably had his phone number or his agent's phone number. He got him in because that's how stuck he was. He's been injured. He's been injured a lot as well, which hasn't helped. We've also brought, it's going to the game. You're looking for the best. You're looking for performances from the players that are available. Like, there's a lot of really good players out injured. We know that, right? But we've known that a long time. Martin O'Neill has got us. He's got us results that we thought were gone. Late goals, penalty shootout in the cup. We've been really winging it. There hasn't been any progression all season, really.
Probably with the exception of the Motherwell game the other week. I looked at it. You keep thinking maybe we've turned a corner.
And a couple of results in Europe as well, Michael.
Yeah,
have been
that
decent,
was a good
right?
performance. Iheanacho, for me, I don't doubt the guy's got quality and an eye for goal, but his match fitness is obviously an issue. So why bring him in when he's barely been near the team, when you need a victory and you need goals. The other one for me is Orojo. I mean, there's all sorts of rumours flying about that it's because he has behaviour, which is, if that's the reason that he's no in the squad, then I'm sorry, but whoever has told him to go down the road back to England should go with him. You know what I mean? Because he was one of the few bright sparks in the team. We've got somebody playing. We've got two players playing at right back. When it's reshuffled on Sunday, that on the right backs. And if he's not unfit, and the reason that he's not at Celtic is because of his behaviour in a pub or after that cup game or whatever, then whoever's responsible for that really shouldn't be involved with Celtic. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's just absolute nonsense. Of course, players might overstep the mark at times, but if he's been let go for that reason, then that is just absolute madness. I mean, the fans love him. They love his commitment, and they love the fact that he's also looks like a fan. Oh, so if
Yeah,
that's the
and
reason, then the
he's been a
questions really should be asked.
he's been a bright spark, Michael, and as well as that, Big Tam was missing on Sunday. He
Yeah,
was
which adds fuel to the fire.
he had held up the phone in those pictures. But we spoke about this, about people putting stuff on social media. Just leave your fucking phone in your pocket and let the players enjoy a night out. For God's sake, it's just like it's getting embarrassing now. It's stuff that people are posting up to try and get there. I don't know why. I just don't know why people would post up. Celtic fans would post up pictures of players or videos of players out on a night out. When they know what it's going to lead to. Big Tam was stupid if he did do that thing with the phone. I've only seen an image of it, but like,
It's not the worst crime in the world, is it?
he hasn't been. But Big Tam is like the rest of the strikers. He just doesn't know where the goals are. I've never seen a bunch of Celtic strikers at the club. We've always had one that could find the net.
We're just not getting the service either. But even when you put my head up front, there's no service for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's
well,
just players.
That might be a reason as well. But I think the forward line that finished against Rangers in the cup was just one of the worst forward lines I've ever witnessed at Celtic.
Well, we've had some strange ones at other years. Given Michael Johnson as a sole striker and stuff.
No disrespect to Celtic sevens who are past the sell-by day.
Yeah.
But if you're relying on James Forrest to come off the bench and turn the game every week, it's not going to happen.
No.
And you know what? When he does come on, he looks better than what he's replaced. But he just doesn't have 90 minutes on him.
Aye.
But it's so frustrating coming down the road. And I love some of the lads' attitude. They popped open a can, they put the music on, they had the crack, they switched off. I just couldn't switch off. I'd been up from 3:30 in the morning. I was questioning my sanity. I was questioning the money I'd spent. And then we got stuck in traffic for an extra hour. It took us over 3 hours to get back from Tannadice. And by the time I got off the bus, when the lads were saying, right, you're going for a pint, it was no. And I just went to the hotel and had a couple of pints on my own and just shot the breeze with a few lads, Celtic lads that were in the hotel, and just went to bed early. It was just, it drains.
Emotionally draining. It's emotionally exhausting.
It drains the life out of you, Michael. I'm talking about draining the life out of you. It's international break. I travelled with Ireland and I didn't get a ticket for Prague, so I didn't go. A couple of lads that did go, two of them got in. I'm not sure how, but they were in the stadium. The other lads watched in a pub. I think one of the pubs, the screen fell off. But I was gutted. I was gutted for the Irish players last night because the commitment they have shown against, punching above their weight. Like when Martin O'Neill was manager of Ireland, we qualified for the Euros. We went to France. What a summer we had. It was fantastic. And then we lost out to Denmark and Schmeichel was playing in the playoffs for the World Cup. And then O'Neill was gone. And, we've had managers in. I'm not going to go into how good or how bad they were, but it's well documented that the Irish team was on a free fall. And then to bring in an Icelandic manager who many questioned, a dentist by trade, Heimo Helgensen, and I hope I pronounced that right. I'm terrible with pronunciations.
I never saw it last night. Aye,
but he turned their fortunes around. Like nobody gave us a chance going into the Portugal game in the Aviva. No one gave us a chance going to Hungary. Troy Parra, when Scales knocks that ball onto him, and Troy Parra, we finally have Ireland now. Finally has an iconic player, a striker to, I suppose, for the young kids to have a hero.
Yeah.
And last night I felt so sorry for him because he's had a really good club season in Holland. He's been banging in the goals. I think they're still in the Conference League, but I was gutted for him after the game last night. He was almost in tears, But he is one of the future stars, and I was also gutted for Seamus Coleman. Now this is a player that doesn't get a game at Everton, but yet when he turns up for Ireland, he's just unbelievable.
To be 2 goals up, I know, and no mean, maybe the fact he went 2 goals up so early is the issue. Maybe if he been late in the game, you'd have seen it out. But
Michael, they were
to be 2
fantastic
up,
in the
and
first half. They were
yeah,
up for it. They were organised. The penalty was a penalty. Then they get to look at the second goal, and they're cruising. And then just late in the first half, Manning pulls back one of the Czech players. The ball's going out. It's covered. It's just a moment of madness. And then,
right. As I say, I've not seen it. I'll need to have a look at the highlights after I finish here and have a look.
Up until then, Michael, right? Up until then, Ireland were in control. The Irish fans, probably about 3,000 in total, if you include the ones in with the home fans. They were out singing.
Yeah.
The home fans, and the home fans had a big ultra group behind the goals, microphones, speakers, the whole lot. That goal then gives them half time to regroup, to get themselves together, and then they come out and Ireland were under the cosh in the second half. But Ireland hit the woodwork twice. On another day, these goals go in, and it silences the crowd again. But unlike Celtic, both on and off the park, Ireland are progressing under this manager. There's new people running the FAI. There's going to be huge problems now with this game against Israel, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I've seen the Drogheda.
And yeah, we've also had Joanna getting removed from her position as co-chairperson of Dundee United. So there's problems locally, but nationally the team is progressing under this manager. At Celtic, I don't see any progression, but either on or off the park, Michael.
No.
I don't know how. When you think back to last October, Rangers sacked their manager. They brought in a new manager. By November, they'd sacked their CEO, who had appointed this manager, and the director of football. Tisdale he took the fall for people way above his pay grade, and rightly so. He should have went, but others should have went as well, Michael. The communication from the club is absolutely shocking.
We look as if we're hold not only beneath the waterline, but it's clear to see that we're hold above the waterline as well, and we're bailing water. We're bailing water as quick as we can with Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney and Fotheringham, but we're taking on water quicker than we're losing it, despite the fact that they're doing their best to keep us afloat. But it was always like Sunday was always likely to happen. There's no progress. There's nothing. Basically, Martin O'Neill nuts came in and he steadied the ship to an extent, but I just don't see where we go for here. I know we've got a lot of players out injured that would make a big difference across the course of the season. Probably, I can't remember a season like this when we've had so many injuries to key players for so long. But we're going to need a new manager come the end of the season when they're going to wait till after the World Cup till that happens to see who's available. Are we going to go into the transfer? We might not even have Champions League to worry about. But we're going to go into the transfer window again and wait till last minute to see if it. And I was just looking at a list of players that we potentially will either lose or are going to lose. It runs into over 20 players that could be away. I just don't. Honestly, I just don't get how we got to this state. But I do get how we got to this state because it's on the board. Everybody, it's on the board. I don't see how this is going to be an easy fix. I know football can turn really quickly. You can bring in a manager or bring in a couple of players, as we've seen with Ange Postecoglou. But we weren't in the state that we're in just now. And we're not going to find another Ange Postecoglou, I don't think. I really don't think we're going to get that lucky again, because we were lucky to get him. If it wasn't for Eddie Howe taking so long to back out of the deal that he'd agreed, we wouldn't have got him, Postecoglou. But I just don't see it happening again. I mean, they've obviously tried their hand with Wilfred Nancy, thinking maybe we'll get lucky again, but that didn't work. So where do we go for here? Who are they going to bring in as manager? I don't see any manager that would anybody with any sense in their brain wouldn't want to come into Celtic, given what's going on for the last couple of years. It's obvious that the managers haven't been backed. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of nonsense spoken about the players that Brendan brought in on sort of higher fees, Engels, Trusty, etc. I mean, Ida, even. I mean, I know Ida wasn't exactly setting the header alight up front, so to speak, but Engels is a fantastic player in my mind, and Trusty's a great centre back. When his back's to the wall, you can see it. Prone to a mistake like everybody else. But if he wasn't prone to a mistake, then he wouldn't be at Celtic. But I think given time, I think the transfer fees paid for Engels, etc., was maybe a weight around his neck. But there's no doubt he's a quality player, and we've really missed him. So we've went back to the 3, 4 million, £5 million signings, Balikwisha, just basically hook a duck. Hope that you're getting something when you have absolutely no idea what you're getting. How anybody could have scouted him for 18 months to 2 years and thought that he was worth 5 million is absolutely beyond my realm of thought. I just don't know how anybody could have scouted him and thought. I mean, he's no physically strong looking. He's quite a skinny guy. I know you don't have to be the biggest of guys, you know what I mean? But there's just nothing about him that I've seen in any of the few appearances he's made that would make me think, well, I would pay £5 million for him. When I seen him at first, I was like, he doesn't look like a winger. And then I thought, maybe he's not the type of winger that goes by people. Because you get players like that play wide, but they don't take players on and stuff, but they add something, and they bring other players into the game and stuff like that. I thought maybe he's that style, and I seen he was back at Royal Antwerp last week, probably looking for a loan move back. So that's probably what will happen with him. He'll get loaned back to his old club. I really don't know where we're going, but it's absolutely rudderless. But for Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney and that come around and try to steer us towards the horizon. I mean, we're hold below the waterline, and not only below it but above it as well. It's plain to see that the ship's in bits. You know what I mean? So, aye. I just don't know where we're going to
Adam
go here.
Meada, in his defence, he hasn't. I think last night when he came off the bench for Ireland, they said he hadn't featured in 18 games.
Yeah, I know. Aye,
But
I'm not saying that he was the answer of
in
front,
his
but
defence, and I've watched him a lot for Ireland when he was the first choice striker, where his job was basically to hold the ball up and try and bring players in. It wasn't a great period for Ireland.
no.
Since then,
I wasn't a big fan of him, to be honest. You know what I mean? But I think
he's been replaced up front for Ireland since then. Obviously, Parrott's the man now. He's got the jersey. It's other players to take off him. But one thing about Ida was when he came into the club on loan that time, it was great coming off the bench. He scored Hibs, Motherwell.
Yeah, he
winning
took
the
his
goals.
penalties at Hibs, which showed a lot of ball.
The cup final.
If he hadn't scored in the cup final, would we have kept him? But that's the thing as well.
That has come in since up front better than him? I don't think so.
No, that's the thing. There's nothing better.
I think even as people said, he wasn't great. He was 20 goals a season, man.
Yeah.
So we're crying out for that now. But what did the board do? They cashed in on him, Michael.
Exactly.
And then they brought him back up the road for the game in Ibrox. Like you couldn't make before they sold him. So his head's away. He wanted to stay. But
they said they wouldn't sell him until we had a replacement in place, and then they whipped the rug out for under Rodgers' feet.
And that was because the money was gone from the Champions League.
It was just absolute bonkers.
Look, I'd love to know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall at some of the meetings because obviously nothing is communicated, and to me, everyone in the boardroom, they got rid of Don McKay because who was the chief executive when Ange came in, if you remember.
Yeah, it looked as if
who they had headhunted a bit like a bit like Wilfred Nancy. But I'm telling you now, if Michael Nicholson was made CEO after the COVID season, there would have been uproar.
Mm.
But he was put in as interim when Don McKay, for whatever reason, left or was pushed out, or wasn't the Dermot Desmond Nod and Donkey type of CEO.
We still don't have a permanent chairman.
We got lucky. Yes, that's true. We got lucky with Ange. Even early days watching Ange's football was great. You knew there was something there.
Yeah, yeah.
So because results were going well, people start forgetting about what went on during the COVID season, and maybe the season previously, and such a fall from grace in that season, and then at Christmas he's made. I think it was at Christmas Nicholson is made CEO. There's not much about it. He's probably spoken twice or three times since then, and even every time he opens his mouth, it's disaster. Like the Wilfred Nancy interview with Celtic TV will haunt him till he finally leaves Celtic. Now these guys are getting really well paid, and for me, they don't give value for money, and I just don't see. I don't see where we go. Does Dermot Desmond sell his shares? I
wouldn't be surprised if he just ran the football club into the ground. To be honest, just in spite. That makes sound extreme. It would be nothing to him, I don't think. I mean, at the end of the day, he was still get something back for his shares.
I've always thought, right, in previous years that Dermot was, it was just a play thing. He doesn't go to games, right? He's obviously more important things to do with his business empire. But then I was listening to a podcast, the Celtic Exchange lads were talking to the Celtic Supporters Club in New Orleans about they're hosting the American Convention this year.
Right.
And one of them was saying that they were sitting watching the match one day, and Dermot Desmond and his wife came in, sat on their own, drank a few cups of tea, were left alone. Watched the game, and then one of them, the club went over and said to him, was recommending good restaurants or something, or places to go, and he says, "Oh no," he says, "We're flying to Barbados. We just stopped off to watch the match. We're flying to the Bahamas. I think it was the Bahamas or Barbados. One of the Barbados. I think he has the hotel. They were flying down a private jet." And he said, "No, we just come in for the game." So that doesn't show someone that doesn't care about Celtic. And I also know that he watches everything that happens on the Scouting Network.
Right.
So this makes me divided. If he knows what's going on, why
we're in the state we're in?
Why is he acting, and why because if he holds on to his shares, he's not going. A father hands. They leave stuff behind when they pass away.
Of course,
I'm not wishing them any ill will, but it's just the way the circle of life is. So then Ross Desmond becomes the major shareholder in Celtic. And he
biggest minority.
He's as popular as Gary Glitter at a children's party.
That's done his dad. His dad has put him in that position as well, I suppose. But to read out that statement on his behalf, So, but
because he's not within the support. His name is Muck, from that talk down he gave us at the AGM. So it's just so negative around the club at the moment, Michael. And I listened to another podcast yesterday as well. Jackie and Simon have started a new podcast called Just What We Need, a new podcast called Not Another Football Podcast, and Neil Lennon was the guest on it. And I enjoyed it because with such toxicity, if that's the word, around Celtic after Tannadice, Neil Lennon on, they were speaking about the game, but they were also speaking about life at Dunfermline for him. And then they went off on one day and just talking about music and Oasis gigs, and it was lighthearted. Jackie said to Simon, because I think Jackie had met the Gallaghers obviously through different gigs he was at and that, and obviously they've been up at Celtic Park.
Right.
And he
I met
says,
Noel Gallagher myself once.
yeah,
Yeah.
what was he like?
I was only briefly. I boarded a plane to London. I can't remember where I was going, but I seen these musicians putting up their instruments up in the overhead lockers, no, and I went, oh, they're obviously in a band, no. So, but when we go to, I can't remember if it was Heathrow or Stansted. So when we got there was no air bridge, so it was onto the bus you go. So we go into the bus and I sits down and I looks and I went, oh fuck, it's Noel Gallagher, man. I was like, all right, no, how you doing? Maybe you doing? Because they'd obviously flew through Glasgow, and I went, maybe he's doing in Glasgow. And he says, oh, we were doing a thing for Radio Clyde last night at the Hydro. I went, all right, and so I started talking away to him. But he was all right. I says to him, I says, I was there a few nights ago to see the Prodigy because I knew that his brother was married to an Appleton, and so was Liam Howlett for the Prodigy. They two were married to the sisters. So he just asked me how.
What was the name of that band?
Noel Gallagher's band.
No, the Applebee's.
All Saints.
All Saints, yeah.
All Saints.
Yeah.
Aye, so
they're back together actually. I seen them on the Chris Evans show.
So he asked me how the Prodigy concert was and stuff. I said that was brilliant. No, but he says that was just his was a contractual thing. They were only playing 2 songs and it was 4 or 5. There was one of these things where the radio station puts on a gig and there's maybe 5 bands on doing a couple of songs, but it was a high flying bird, so I had no idea who it was. I never recognised any of them till I sat beside him. But he was fine, you know what I mean? Well, although I find the other brother much more interesting than him. Although I've never met him, I just his social media and his whole persona I find more interesting to me. Anyway,
I've never met either, but I know all our cousins, and Rusty, Lord of mercy on him, he passed away last year. He used to come to games with us because they've got family here. The father's from Dundee, where our supporters club is, so I bumped into him as well over the years. So so that's my only connection with Oasis. But Jackie and Simon, Jackie had seen him a couple of times. Simon had seen him a couple of times, and I know they're fans of the band because I met Simon at the Texas gig on the Sunday night in Belfast, and he'd been to Oasis on the Saturday night. Because when I was getting on the train that day, a friend of mine ran up to me and he says, "You're getting on the wrong train." He said, "That's the Belfast train," and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to Belfast." He said, "You're not going to Oasis?" I said, "No, I'm going to see Stiff Little Fingers," which we spoke about last week. Yeah. They were playing on the same day. So I was going one way and they were going the other. It was bucket hats galore in the train station. But great, two great gigs by all accounts. Stiff's was brilliant. There to witness it. And then the reports from the Oasis gigs were great. But anyway, back to the original story.
Yeah, moving off on a tangent. Well, sorry.
So they were speaking about Oasis because they asked Lenny, his musical interest, and he was saying he lived in Manchester during that whole when they were on the way up,
right?
And he said it was it was a great time, the age he was, and going out and what have you. But he mentioned Martin, so I don't know if Martin, which is his agent, or Martin O'Neill. And him and Tomo went to see Oasis in the Barrowlands. And they were backstage, and Tomo spilled a can of Guinness over Noel Gallagher.
That sounds about right.
That
Lucky wasn't Liam.
that was Tomo's introduction to him. So Jackie rings up Simon one day and he says, "You know the way you always wanted to meet Noel Gallagher?" And he says, they're doing an intimate gig in Edinburgh. Would you like to come? And he said, "Oh yeah." So they told the women they were going to an intimate gig to see Oasis, and they were very excited about this. And when they walked into the gig, it was a tribute band.
Was it? Huh?
So
no Oasis.
So Jackie was going, "Look, I've just told the women we're going to an intimate gig with Oasis." So what he done was there was a cardboard cutout of Noel and Liam on the side of the stage. So he got the one of Noel and he signed it to Jackie and Sid from Noel Gallagher. So he could show it to the women when he got back. And but they ended up. They said they had a great night on the tour bus with the Oasis tribute act. So I thought that was brilliant. I think I think with the stories that the two boys have, and especially the eras they played in at Celtic, and the guests they can get on, and the way the podcast went, it was light-hearted. You know, those stories about Tomo spilling the drink and all that. I really enjoyed it, Michael, because at a time I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, both
Aye,
politically
and it's all about
and
the
about my football
negativity.
and about my football club. You know, the world is so negative with the wars that's going on, and you know Donald Trump and so forth. So you know, to
Yeah.
get something light-hearted that included the two of the loves of my life, you know, football, especially Celtic, and music, and from people of
Easy listening.
my generation. I really enjoyed it. If you get a chance, give it a listen. And if the listeners want something a bit more light-hearted, and I hope they chop it as well, because music fans would love the, you know, non-Celtic music fans would love the
There's
music section in it.
such a plethora of podcasts and stuff to listen to now as well, and blogs and stuff. I was reading, there was a really good article that I read this morning for Andy Muirhead, the
I read it.
blogger.
I
That's
read
very
it
good about the
myself. Yeah.
fanzines and about and how Celtic are still plodding away with their own media, which is just fluffed up propaganda basically. Whereas the fan media is really where it's at now. So aye, it was a really good article, and it actually made me read another couple of these articles, because I remember Andy Muirhead for years ago.
He used to write for the fanzine.
Aye, so aye, but it was really good. I read a few of these articles this morning; they were really good. So if there's anybody listening or watching, go and have a look at Andy's stuff
you
as
know
well.
what
It's
a
really
good
good.
thing. You know what a good thing is, Michael. I sign up for the newsletter, and it comes in every day from Celtic News Now.
News, yeah.
David's
signed up for that as well.
website, and it'll give you a couple of podcasts, a couple of things, and it's the first thing that pops up in the morning. So that's how I found the Andy Moorhead's article, because there is so much stuff coming in at you. You know,
I look at it
it's
every day.
constant.
Some of the stuff on Celtic News now is a bit hard and miss. It can be regurgitated stuff for the press that somebody else has just put out, try to get hits and stuff. But
it's
Celtic
also hard to
that's
read,
good.
Michael.
Aye.
Some of the websites you go into, you have to watch a video, and then you know you've Google adverts everywhere, and you know Google adverts is a good way for people who are full-time blogging to get an income coming in. You'd have to get serious hits, so you can see why they're you can see why they're regurgitating news. Whereas on our website, it's more bloggers, and we do hold back a lot of stuff for the fanzine, because even though it's kind of old school print, the digital now takes it around the world. You know, in like if we send a PDF to a supporters club and they have 500 members, they can have that PDF before it's even arrived at the printers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is, but some people still love the print copy. I love a book that I can read. I've two. I got two to review that was sent to me, and trying to read them on the laptop or the iPad. It's just not the same as having the physical book. But then again, like I think the younger generation reading books anymore, because my son Connor was an avid reader as a child, but into his early teens. But I haven't seen Connor reading a book in a long time.
I don't really read many books. I don't know if it's because of my job and stuff. I was just constantly reading and writing. So it was more sort of short articles and stuff I would read. So I don't read that many books, to be honest, except if I'm on holiday, possibly I would sit and read. But I've got two young kids now, obviously. So when I go on holiday, I don't get time to read a book now. I'm always going to be in the pool getting used as a springboard or a submerged shipwreck or something like that. You know what I mean? So to be stood on. So I don't really. Well, my wife's sunning herself at the edge of the pool, going, I don't want to get my hair wet. No, so I'm the one that's in there, being the water buffalo, so to speak. You know what I mean? So, but I don't get to read that many books. I've got a couple of David Potter books lying beside my bed, and I can't get by the first chapter because I'm usually too knackered by the time I go to bed.
See with David's books, right? The late great David Potter, what he's left behind. So he must have left 30 or 40 books.
Incredible, the work he left behind.
But see, some of his books, you can pick them up and you can just read a chapter.
Yeah,
I'm
reading the 80s one just now, but I've not got that far in it. But it's I mean, it wasn't the most successful decade, but it wasn't the worst either. People think in the 80s and they think Aberdeen, Dundee United dominated Scottish football. Sooners came in at the end of the night. It's absolute nonsense. We were the most successful club, out with the European success of the two Tayside and Aberdeen and Tayside. Domestically, we were the most successful club during the 80s. I'm sure with the championships and trophies we won. So, but people often go, oh, that was the time when Aberdeen and Dundee United dominated football. Celtic were just as strong as them then. There wasn't much in the championships that Aberdeen and Dundee United won. There was you could have probably one game, one result went in our favour. We could have won the league, especially Dundee United, the final game of the season. We were at Ibrox and we won 4-2 after trailing 2-0 at half time. Dundee United beat Dundee, I'm sure, that day to win the title, but they were that close, you know what I mean? Aberdeen came to Glasgow and won twice in a short period of time, and that tipped it for Alec Ferguson, no. But the 80s is a time when I was a teenager, you know what I mean? So it was a time when I was all consumed with everything Celtic, and going to the games every week was it. That was all I done. No, that was all I alluded to. So
yeah, the 80s. If I've one regret, it was from the first real season I took an interest in Celtic. I remember them playing Nottingham Forest in the mid 80s. It was on sports. The highlights were on Sports Night, and we wouldn't have got a lot of.
Yeah, it's almost a disaster at that doing it the City Ground, no, with the crowd.
You had that game?
I wasn't in the City Ground. No, I never got a ticket for that. I was at the home game. We lost. And I always remember we drew 0-0 at the City Ground, but there was terrace sort of pens in the corners, and they were far too full. And there was the spout onto the pitch at one point during the. I always remember watching it on the telly that night, and they were talking about how they thought it was trouble starting, but it wasn't. It was just people getting crushed basically, and it was luckily that it was lucky that nobody was sort of seriously injured and stuff that night, because that could have easily been an early Hillsborough.
And like as I said, Michael, that was like we would got very little. We spoke about last week about how we consumed Celtic back in the day. We would have got very little coverage, but we would have got highlights of the Scottish Cup final straight after the FA Cup final, because the FA Cup final was a big thing on TV. It started early in the morning. They both kicked off the same time, but then after. But I was starting to get an interest, that 87, 88 season in Celtic, because my brother was living in London. He was going up to games. He was sending home. Not the View was coming home. There was programs coming home. If you come home at Christmas, he gave me a book and a video on the history of Celtic. So there was an interest there. So by the time the cup final came about, we got to see the highlights, McAvenny's goals, and that. And I've always said if I could jump in a time tunnel and go back to a Celtic game, I wouldn't take me to Lisbon, which most people would love to go. I just that early memory as a teenager, probably starting to dabble in alcohol. And I think being Hampden that day in the sunshine with all the Celtic fans, Billy McNeil leading the team out, an iconic Dublin or centenary season. There's something magical about it.
Yeah, I was at most of the games that season.
But after it, Michael, I would have, I would have loved to be down the Gallagher, and I just would have loved to be, part of that whole thing. And
the thing was back then as well, you get. There was only the Scottish Cup final was the only game you would get live on TV. The rest of it was highlights on a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon. We had both Scottish Sport and Sports Scene. So you'd one on STV and one on BBC. Archie McPherson on BBC. Arthur Montford would take one on STV. So that's what you get, would be highlights. And when you think back to just the end of the decade earlier in '79, when we won the league with 10 men, that's there's very, very. I mean, there's Celtic TV footage for that, which looks as if it's been filmed in 1959 instead of 1979. But that's one of the most iconic games in our history, and yet there's nothing from it. You know what I mean? Apart from that sort of grainy footage. And it's mad when you think back now. When you think of this, the saturation we get at.
Yeah.
Coverage on for live football now, but back then you get one game a season if you were lucky. Even the European games, you would get some highlights at night after the game, maybe 20 minutes of highlights, 25 minutes of highlights, and that was it. But some of the games back then I've really logged in my memory just for attending. So reading the 80s book brings a lot of it back, no? It really does. It makes it vivid again in my mind. But you also had the rise of the casuals and stuff around about then as well, which was a big fact. I mean, people going about unsavoury stuff now, but it's when you think back to then, I mean, the state of the stadiums and stuff like that, the policing was a shambles. Not that that's changed right enough, it's still a shambles. So and the board was a disaster, a bit like the now. It's funny how things just turn full circle after all we want it. Just repeat.
Yeah, when you think now, we spoke in the last podcast about the Ultras documentary, which I got to see on the BBC player in the hotel last Monday before I left the hotel. So that was I watched the 3 parts of it. But when you think back to when I think back years and years ago to the skinheads on the terraces.
Yeah.
And then, music has always played a big part with football fans. Go to football on a Saturday, and then out on a Saturday night. No matter what what your music was. Obviously, I was involved in the from my love of ska and reggae, I got into the skinhead scene, and then I remember the casuals. I remember mates changing.
Well, some of the guys I've been about with were punks, and then they became casuals.
It was a big kind of change, and it was all about, and then it was all about like there was casuals who had no interest in football hooliganism, but most of the football hooligans became casuals because it was the uniform. It was not wanting to be identified. And like it was exciting as well, even though it was violent. There was a certain excitement as a young person, with the whole scene. And then obviously, you watch Heysel, you watch Hillsborough
stadiums
banning orders, and then England getting banned from Europe, and the influx of the English international players to Rangers. So there was just when you think there's just so much happened in those eras, and then you spring forward, Michael, to we were speaking about Oasis and that to the 90s, where the fashion that we see now on the terraces reappeared. You're wearing a beautiful retro Adidas T-shirt there, right? I wish I had the body to still fit into one, right? Which was actually my
I think I do triple XL still.
Before the Britpop and the rebirth of the modism scene and that in the 90s, I remember going to London and everybody was dressed in the Adidas tops and the retros. I was still wearing DMs and Levi's and Ben Shermans. Yeah. And that was my PE top in blue and white. That's what we wore. We had a PE uniform in school, and that's how uncool it was back then. And all of a sudden then, and now I look at, since Adidas have come in, I'm sure apart from this year, when there's been the Not Another Penny campaign, I'm sure up until this, Adidas was a dream for them at Celtic because they were producing so much. Even Matt O'Neill looks cool in an originals tracksuit. Yeah. But there's a bad side to that as well. I couldn't fucking believe it. Here's the language. When I saw Conor McGregor in the new tricolour Adidas Celtic tracksuit, right? This is a man who, to my knowledge, has never set foot in Celtic Park. And I know a relative of Conor, who'll remain nameless because he's a gentleman, who attends every Celtic game.
Yeah.
he's a bus and boat man, and he knows who he is. But I couldn't believe it. Conor McGregor is everything that Celtic fans are not. He
Exactly.
stands for everything that we don't stand for, right?
Yeah.
And when I saw it, and I tried not to, pay much attention to him, but when I saw it, my stomach just done the turn. I went, oh, for fuck's sake. The last thing we want associated with a great club is this.
Well, to be fair, we have got an element of like every other club that there's a percentage of supporters and that'll probably think the same way that Conor McGregor does, unfortunately. Thankfully they're a minority, but he's political thinking and he's thinking on humanity just don't align with what I see Celtic to be. But having said that, some members of the board, their thinking as well doesn't align what I think Celtic should be. It is what it is, I suppose. But thankfully, he doesn't attend Celtic Park. That's the main thing for me. You can't stop people wearing certain things if they think they look cool, but I wouldn't class him as a Celtic fan, no, definitely not. So regardless of what badge he sticks in his chest, thankfully we don't see that again. That's quite a cool top, so I can see why he was attracted to it.
I've actually seen I've seen a few on the flights in and out of Glasgow. It is an attractive top, and but I've actually got a couple of green and black Adidas tops, but I don't have anything with the Irish colours. But I'll support the campaign for now.
Not another penny campaign.
Yeah. But then
this is the thing I know. We've got. I was speaking to my wife's uncle last night, who's a season ticket holder, and he goes every week. Now he was talking about St Mirren have settled their allocation for the semi-final. Celtic are still in a position where we haven't released theirs, tell us who's getting one, anything like that. And for people like yourself that are travelling, the St Mirren fans, if they're travelling, or any other club, have got a head start on booking hotels, flights, etc. Whereas for some, it seems to be the norm with Celtic that they seem to hold back the tickets. I mean, they've sold corporate packages already, tickets, and that means so. Where are they playing it? I mean, it just seems to be every time, no matter who we're playing, the other club seems to put theirs out, get some sell, and then we're sitting worrying and wondering when are the tickets coming? Are we getting a ticket? How many are we getting? Etc. I mean, the League Cup final with St Mirren were selling 20 to each fan.
Season ticket holder, yeah.
Aye, so he mentioned that last night, and I was like, right, and we've got other time. We're going to have season ticket renewals coming soon. This is going to be, I don't know, but I've spoke to people who have been season ticket holders for 30 odd years, and they're saying, I'm not renewing. I don't know how many that will affect, but
I think when it comes closer to the time, they will renew. It's just
probably the majority will, because there is an emotional hold. I mean, you go like that, right? Okay, things aren't going the way they should. I mean, these people are renewing because we're not being successful, but because of the way we've been treated as a support. You've got over 200 fans being locked out the ground just now, who, I mean, I think, what was the arrest number? I can't remember how many breach of the peace charges was, maybe 5 or something. So you've got over 200 who have had no alleged criminality whatsoever, and they're being locked out the ground. Some of them probably weren't even there at the Falkirk game. Probably half of them weren't even there. Most of them don't belong to the Green Brigade. So what do these people think, and what do the rest of the support think on that? Would that be okay if it was somebody in your block, if 200 of you get banned because 4 or 5 allegedly upset a steward or a police officer? I just think, I mean, between that and the AGM and everything, I mean, there will be people that just go, you know what, my money's probably better spent elsewhere. And even over and above that, I think a lot of supporters now won't hand out their money so readily when it comes to European games if they're not in the Champions League. It's not going to be a draw for Europa League's not going to be a big draw for supporters as we've seen this season. So I think there could be a bigger amount now to take themselves off the home cup ticket scheme if they. I think there'll be maybe a percentage that don't renew as well, or that maybe farm their season ticket out for a season or two to others. We'll see, but it's the board have done nothing to make us feel valued as customers over and above being supporters and the lifeblood of the club. They've done nothing this season to make us feel valued whatsoever. I mean, the AGM was sickening, to say the least, and what they just seem to be T-foul coated, or so they think. I mean, but I think there will be. I mean, there's been a downturn in the money that's coming into the club, and I think that will continue regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season. I don't see us winning the league. I honestly don't. I'm not going to write it off entirely, but the probability isn't great. We're third favourites now. Let's be honest. We're third favourites in what is now a 3-horse race. So we need to beat Hearts and Rangers and hope that somebody else does as a turn as well. That's the bottom line, no?
And we'll have to beat the other teams as well, Michael, because
exactly, I'm just over and above.
But if as it currently stands, I was writing a blog. I was writing a piece for the fanzine yesterday. Just a plug for the fanzine. The new issue will be out next week, hopefully, if I get my finger out. And thanks to everybody who sent in their articles. I'm still waiting on yours, Michael, by the way.
Sorry.
Always last. But I was listing, the downsides of what's happened this season, and they are great. Now, the board are playing a dangerous game because unlike down in England, where they don't need a fan to turn up for it to buy a season ticket, because the TV money and the sponsorship revenue is off the charts.
Aye, it makes the season ticket money almost irrelevant, no, the TV money, doesn't it?
In Scotland, Celtic need the fans. They need the Champions League money if they had to grow, because the money in Scottish football is just not there. Now, whoever wins the league this year will have one qualification game, like Celtic had last year against Garat, to reach the Champions League, the elite
league
of European football. Those who finish second, I think, I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3, but they have a couple of qualifications to reach the Champions League. And as I said, the elite. Third place, Michael, where Celtic sit at the moment. Your reward for finishing third in Scotland is a place in the Europa Conference League, a place where a competition Celtic have never played in.
Well, we have
that
played
qualification. It's not even an automatic qualification. That qualification begins in July, when players will be still at the World Cup or on holidays if they've played a small part in the World Cup on their own. Winning the Scottish Cup, which Celtic will still be favourites for, but it's not a given with this team. We saw that in the League Cup final when we fell apart in the second half. Your reward for winning the Scottish Cup is to take part in the qualifications for the Europa League, which means Thursday, Friday football if you do qualify.
That's the other thing as well, isn't it? You're back to Sundays every week.
And then
if you do manage to actually get
does devalue your season ticket, because a lot of people won't go on a Sunday, especially ones who travel a distance, because of work the next day. But Saturday 3:00 is ideal for them, and them games are few and far between. But if you're in the Champions League, there's a better chance you're playing on Saturday than playing on Sunday. So it's food for thought if we do finish third in the league and we lose the cup, and this is all if, buts and maybes, but the thought has crossed my mind of Thursday nights in the Conference League, or in the Europa Conference League, and more Sunday football. which is it's not the greatest to be looking ahead when, and for those who say we're spoiled and we always look ahead to the Champions League, I just say fuck you, because
Aye,
I
after the
I don't think I'm spoiled. I just like my national team, Ireland. I want to see progression. And Ireland don't have world class, world beaters in their team.
no.
But what they have is a manager who has been able to get a spirit together. And those players, what they lack in quality, they make up in effort.
What's your thoughts on a manager coming in? Would you consider the Motherwell manager, given the style of football that they play and what he's been able to do with him with such a limited budget? Is that?
Well, I think the board would, because he won't cost him that much money. He'll get an upgrade on his pay from Motherwell, but it's a big difference managing Motherwell and managing Celtic.
Yeah.
Would I take him? I'd certainly consider him. Robbie Keane won't be a popular choice among the support, but I don't think Dermot Desmond worries about that. And Dermot Desmond he does seem to lean to the Irish. Craig Bellamy has been mentioned.
Craig Bellamy for me would seem a good one. He knows he's been here. He knows what it's all about. He doesn't take any prisoners, so to speak. He doesn't suffer fools gladly. I don't think Bellamy knows. So it might be a bit too acerbic for some, I think, maybe in the media. But but it just shows you how far we've fallen in such a short space of time, that we were in fan circles anyway. We're looking at Knutson and stuff like that not that long ago. Even a couple of seasons ago, there was rumours of Maresca, and none of these guys would touch us with a barge pole now, I don't think. Know what I mean? So I think maybe I think it would be a risky move, ask you, given that he's not been at a big club, but near Knutson.
I honestly think, Michael, right, and I know Martin has been in the conversation as well, through his connections with Sean Maloney.
Yeah.
Now he ain't going to come in unless he's promises that were made to Brendan Rodgers, because Rodgers wouldn't have come back unless there was promises made.
But I think, see, even if Martin O'Neill goes on to win the double, I don't think Martin O'Neill should be the manager next year.
I don't think Martin. I think Martin will sail into the sunset. I think Martin enjoys.
I think he would.
I think he enjoys
for his own personal well-being.
I think he enjoys doing his speaking events. I think he enjoys life in London. Judging by, I was in his company when he was retired for a night out, and he spoke about the small faces. He spoke about living in London. His role in the media. He enjoys it. So I think I think Martin always thought you'd unfinished business after, in football. And I think he's come back now and he's proved that he if he had the players he could clean up in Scotland. But unfortunately, between injury and bad transfer windows, he hasn't. So I think Martin, I think it's his age as well. And I think the new Czech manager last night, I think he's 74 and it's his first international job. So, does Martin take a role again in football? I would think no. But can I just throw a spanner in, Michael? Here's my thought on the new manager, right? They can't go for an untried again. They can't go for another Nancy. They can't afford another Nancy. Another disaster, So, do they go for a safe pair of hands like they did with O'Neill? Do they go and try and get Ange Postecoglou back? He's not going to have to be bought out of a contract. He's unemployed. Well, he'll be working at the World Cup for the media.
Would he want to come back?
I
would take him back in a heartbeat. I think the football we played under all the managers I've watched this, Billy McNeil, Davy Hay, straight through to now. For me, the football we played under Postecoglou was phenomenal. The atmosphere in the stadium was phenomenal. It was just, we're never going to get that back. But I don't think now, given given the board are hell bent on keeping the ultras out. So that's not going to come back. But the style of football definitely would. I really doubt that Postecoglou would come back to us, given it's such a shit show. No?
Yeah.
And I think the reason he left will probably be the reasons that he decided to leave will be the reasons that he decides not to come back as well. If he's offered, hypothetical obviously, but I don't think he would consider it unless there was big changes. Promises can be broken, as we've seen before. So, it's about getting the financial backing and stuff as well. And I don't think the sort of backing that Postecoglou would want and need won't be there. I mean, he turned up some real aces for us with the Japanese players and stuff like that. But I think he quite quickly discovered that it was the club doesn't operate the way the other clubs do.
During Andrew's time as well, when Don McKay came in, Don was the first one to give the fan media access to the club.
Aye, yeah.
He
never slated the fans ever.
I remember the first.
Unlike,
and you know what? He was
others, Lennon, for example.
He was very clever, right? He was very clever, Postecoglou. Back then, you could log on Zoom to the press conferences because it was coming out of COVID, and for some reason now you can't log on. You have to be there in person if you were still invited or a part of the mainstream media, who are not Celtic's friends. Whereas most of the fan media would be, I presume, the season ticket holders, and I presume the match going Celtic fans. Well, especially ones that live, this side of the world. But I just. Andrew was always aware. I think he was briefed that it was a roster, so you either got pre or post match. Post match was held in Celtic Park then, so you got pre or post match, and it was a roster, and there was maybe 10 or 20 media outlets. I'm not sure what was on the roster, but we were on it, and you could log in, and I always loved logging into Andrew's press conferences because he wouldn't let the media away with much. He was different than Martin. Martin's press conferences are always entertainment. He has the media. He knows he's so media savvy. Andrew's a bit more rough with them, but he always knew that they always left the fan media to last. So they got so you weren't asking the usual, who's injured, when is this player back, so. You kind of and if you might have had something in your head,
and somebody else asks it before
someone asks, you're last, right?
Often the case.
But sometimes, and then people would have asked, maybe honest questions that the fans were looking for answers for.
Yeah,
and Andrew's always answered them honestly. But I remember once asking him a question, I forget what it was, and a mate texted me straight away after listening to the press conference, and he says, "You nearly got the mate from Ange today."
You upset him?
So yeah, but
listen, mate.
For me, a lot of the media lads in the fan media are disappointed that they've no access anymore. For me, once they stopped the Zoom, I was relying on people in Glasgow to drive to Lennoxtown to do a press conference. If I done a post press conference in Glasgow after the game, by the time I came out, everybody had gone. There was not, sometimes I had to walk back into the city, get an Uber or whatever. But your mates were gone, and so first and foremost, I'm a fan. So the match going experience is after the game to have a pint with the lads. So that was sometimes gone. So it was no. So to me, it's not a big loss because we got to ask one, maybe two questions, depending on. Normally, got to ask the player a question, and so to me, it wasn't a big thing.
No, but it is. It does give you that link. They've taken away that link between it's one of the few links I had between the fans and
especially the ones that want to attend.
Yeah.
And in that article that we spoke about earlier on of Andy Moorhead's, when you think that the Anfield rap,
Yeah,
the
Liverpool FC.
Liverpool one,
Aye.
they had access to the manager. They've done
Yeah,
documentaries on the manager. So like, and so people are consuming media differently as well. And this is not a pop of Celtics media, right? But when I look at it, right, I go, they don't cover the B team on the website. They don't cover the academy stuff. I want to read about, right? This week they were giving the headlines to the girls because Celtic had been
aye, yeah.
beaten. They didn't.
Aye,
They don't want to.
you can wait days and days on Celtic releasing
They
stuff
don't want a
on.
bad news.
Aye,
The
other
bad
than
news
match
statement,
reports. Aye, yep, that's it. You don't get any. It's aye. When I think back, even to, I mean, you go back to the 90s. I mean, Matt McGlone was given a piece to do.
And it was called the
And,
alternative view in the
and
Celtic view.
yeah, and you would have but he was given that opportunity to, because they seen that was the way it was going. That was the fans were, were giving you the things that the club weren't, and you would have thought things would have moved on for then, but unfortunately, it's just just batten down the hatches and
I would
hope
love
this
to
all
see.
blows over.
I would love to see someone from the fan media, or someone from, even if they're not in fan media now, but they work in the mainstream media, but they are a fan, a trusted fan.
Mm.
I'd love to see somebody going in there, because, imagine I've been at a meeting on a Monday saying, well, why are we not covering the B team? Why are we not covering the academy? Why, when I log into the official website of the club and I log into the academy, do I see a post on tickets for Stuttgart game or one of the European games? It's still on the website months. So because I can read about the first team anywhere.
Of
It's
course,
it's it's there, right? I can
it's
read it. I can generally read about the women's team, right?
yep.
Which to be honest, I don't have a lot of interest in.
Mm.
I've a lot of interest in the reserves and what's coming through the academy. But
Yeah,
yeah, I can't read it. Tommy Stevenson goes to the. I watched Tommy's Facebook when the B team are playing to get
yeah.
he might have a couple of comments on it, And if there is someone blogging about the B team or the academy, can they get in contact, folks, and we'll share the stuff out, because it's something that's missing. Yeah, it's okay it's great to have a celebrity on your podcast and so forth, but
Mm.
it's also great to find out what's coming down the line. And
Yeah.
it may not bring in your viewership, or may not bring in your listenership or your readership, but it's such an important part. And I think, Celtic, with the money they have, should be able to employ, even if they could even bring in some, college kids who have an interest in Celtic to cover this. But then you see, it'll be sanitized if they have a bad result. I don't write about that.
Mm. Well, I've often, I mean, throughout the years of working in journalism and stuff, people now and again would send me job advertisements for Celtic FC, and I'd be like, "Your ideal job, eh?" And I'd be like, "Why would I want to just peddle propaganda for a club, man? That's the last thing I would want to do." I says, "Be told what you're going to write, basically, and what sort of style you're going to write it." I says, "That is," but because I'm a Celtic fan, would you not love to work for a club? No, thanks. Why would I? So, aye,
So you
no.
look at that. Look at the hassle that, like, I seen someone writing this week, and they were having a pop at Tony Hamilton about getting a free lunch in Tannadice and that. Now,
Mm.
I've met Tony on a number of occasions. I think the
Oh,
Celtic
super.
Foundation.
Mm.
I've interviewed him. I think the Celtic Foundation do great stuff. But Tony
Mm.
has to toe the party line.
Of course,
John Paul Taylor is an absolute gentleman.
yeah.
Who is a good fans liaison officer. Has a
They're
good
working with their hands tied behind their back, but you know what I mean?
has
That's the
has a
thing.
great
Aye.
relationship with the Celtic fans, Michael,
Yeah.
and like, and even going back to his days in the ticket office, he's a long time figure around. But yeah, I see people who've probably never met JP, you know,
Having
writing
a pop up.
toxic stuff on Twitter and that about him, or X, whatever you call it now. And I just see they definitely don't know, you
JP
know,
doesn't have the authority to do a lot of the
not
things
at all.
that people think he has, know what I mean? And even when it comes to the ticket office, there's a real disconnect between the supporters, liaison officer, and the ticket office. Because he's a former ticket office manager, people think that he can
Yeah.
help them, but no, there's a obvious disconnect between the two, and I think I really feel for John. Paul Taylor at times
And
though,
for
because
so many people, Michael, for so many people
he's in a
who are Celtic fans, to get a job at Celtic is a dream for them. To
mm.
work for the club that they
Aye,
love, and it's
yep.
not their fault if there's not enough tickets. It's
Mm.
not their fault if the board have made a decision. Even to the ones that do the museum tours, you know, they love Celtic. Some of them are
Yep,
Celtic historians. Some of them have
yep.
wrote
I know
books,
one of them. I know
and
one of
like
them as well, quite well. No, no.
not everybody who works for Celtic agrees with the board. But like it's like every job. Any job
Aye.
I was in, like especially if there were unionised jobs, you wear a loggerheads with the management over a number of issues. But at the end of the day, you had to feed your family. These people that work for Celtic, uh, they have to feed. It's a job. It's a means to an end.
Yeah.
They may work for the club they support, but please give them a break. If you've got frustrations, take it out with those at the top, not with those in between and at the bottom.
Mm. Yep, I agree.
Well, Michael, it's been we've had a good rant. We've had
Aye, it's been.
a good chat again. Next week we'll probably talk about our upcoming game in Dens Park. I always think there won't be a lot to talk about, but
We'll look forward with trepidation.
we've
I wouldn't
waffled
be.
on.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get another couple of injuries between now and then. But
Funny you should
aye,
say that. Scales wasn't even on the bench last night for Ireland.
That'll be
But
interesting to see
yeah,
how things go. I'd be interested. I'm really at a loss with the whole Julian Araujo thing. So it'd be interesting to see how that pans out.
yeah. Hopefully he does come back up the road because
We could do well.
Alistair
Just now,
Johnson
no?
is due back as well. I think he's going to be part of the Canadian squad.
Yeah,
Even though he hasn't played, I don't think he'll be playing. He's just going to train with them.
yeah.
I would prefer to see him staying here, but obviously he's got World Cup dreams as well, and Celtic will probably cash in on him in the summer if he's a good World Cup.
And we never even mentioned Casper Schmeichel, so that's for
Yeah,
another
yeah.
day.
Well, Denmark had an easy night last night, 4-0 win over Macedonia without him,
Yeah,
and
well, that would have been the next game for Ireland. So it's just,
but you know what? I fancy Denmark now to beat the Czechs because
they're a good side. I thought
it's not only
Scotland
that, but
was
Michael,
next to
a
get
4-0
past.
comfortable win against North Macedonia. The players won't have overexerted themselves. The
Yeah,
Czech players put a lot into that game last night, both physically
yeah.
and mentally. So if I was a gambling man, which I'm not, I'd have a small punt on
Denmark.
the Danes. So
Yeah, but it's a
Schmeichel may
funny
not
old
be
game.
going as the goalkeeper, but he'll be going as a fan, I'm sure, to the World Cup.
If you're a betting man, which you're not, you'd have probably had a small punt on Celtic last Sunday as well, right enough. But so,
Yeah, maybe. But
so
listen, Michael, thanks
that's
very
how the
much.
bookies are never skint, mate.
Yeah, that's it. You never see a poor bookie. Michael,
Yeah,
thanks very much for taking the time for another chat. And
thanks
thanks to
for
everybody
taking the
for
time to
tuning
listen.
in to another episode of the Celtic Soul Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe as we try to build our YouTube. Don't forget, you'll get the Celtic Soul Shorts over on TikTok and Facebook and so forth. But most of you will probably be listening on the audio. So, as I've said before, these two old are we middle aged or old, Michael, or a bit of both?
I'm still a young guy. I don't know about you.
Well, I'm
Had my brain anyway.
I'm definitely trapped in an 18-year-old's body when it comes to Friday night, and I get to go behind the decks and spin tunes and have a few points. But I feel it the next day then. Okay, folks, that's it for another episode. Thanks very much.
Cheers.